G'day, I'm Rob Larney, and this is Grown Man Speak. Real conversations for grown men who want more from life. G'day, blokes. It is a beautiful Sunday morning here from the home studio, and I just want to apologise in advance. It's a cracking morning, so I thought I'd have the window open, but my resident magpies and butcherbirds are in fine form this morning. So if you hear a little bit of melodic chirping in the background, I do apologise. It's a beautiful sound, and I'm not going to close the window because I'm getting a beautiful, beautiful breeze through. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that if you do hear a little bit of bird song, it's not some ambient track that I've put there for atmosphere. It's my little resident feathered friends singing in the garden. Now, you might have noticed the title of this episode that you're not fucked, but you're not all right either. And that's what I want to talk about today. And look, have you ever been at a point in life when things are going okay, nothing's really wrong, but something just doesn't feel right? Look, I know I have been, and I thought it'd be a great place to kick off because I reckon it's something that most of us can relate to. Because we've probably been there, or we might even be there now. And look, I know it was true of me for most of my life, and look, I suppose to an extent it still is. But the big difference for me now is that I can name what that something is, and I'm working on closing that gap. You probably know the scenario: life's working, the bills are paid, your obligations are met, the job, well, it's doing its job. You're not changing the world, sure, but you're providing, and it pays to keep you in your lifestyle. Well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just keeps your head above water, and I think that's the situation for a lot of people these days. Either way, you're surviving. You don't quite feel like you're thriving, and what I'm talking about here, it's not a fantasy life. I'm talking about a fulfilling life. And look, it's reality that we need to do stuff that we don't really want to do. That's part of the game. There's no fucking way around that shit. But even if life looks good on the outside to others, why do you still get that feeling that something's off? Why aren't you happy? Look, let's start here because for a start, I think we put way too much emphasis on being happy because, happy is not a state. It's a moment. It's fleeting. Happiness doesn't last. It's not really sustainable. But fulfillment and joy, on the other hand, well, they're different. The thing about this sort of unease is that, and unease is probably the best way to describe it, is that it can feel wrong, like you're a bit of an ungrateful prick or a whinger. Nothing's wrong, so you should be just bloody happy and grateful. And that's the word here, isn't it? It should, but you're not. And I think the thing is, we've got to work out why. The thing that I used to do, and I suspect probably a lot of blokes do it, is just go head down, bum up, and push that unease off to the side. But the problem is, the bloody thing just doesn't go away. It doesn't scream at you, but it just fucking niggles at your gut. In the quiet of night when you can't sleep, when you see other people doing amazing shit and you're doing boring shit, when you remember back to when you were so passionate about something that you gave up because of responsibility. And I think it's in those unlived, unexplored, and unrealised things that you buried and discarded for the things that you had to do or were expected to do. And I reckon a lot of the problem is because we structure a lot of our life around the expectations of others and society's versions of how to live. And we give either a secondary or little to no consideration to what's really important to us. And for me, this is where this stuff gets really, really interesting. I reckon it's because much of how we've structured our life is based on a set of values that are outside our own. And that's where I reckon this unease comes from. Now, I don't want to turn the episode into an episode all about values. And yeah, there will be plenty of episodes on values because they're just so fucking central to everything we do. The way we behave, the way we respond to things, and the way we build our life. Yet, very, very few people could name what their values are, and even fewer would be able to rank them in some sort of hierarchy. What I found that worked really well for me was to treat the unease as a signal, not as a symptom that life is fucked and that you're a failure or you're a coward for not chasing your dreams. And I think the important thing that we've got to realise is that life is a series of trade offs and compromises. Otherwise, you'd just be a selfish, bloody narcissist. And you wouldn't have any healthy relationships in your life. And what would be the fucking point? But we've also got to get some perspective on this stuff. And it's really, really easy to get this shit wrong because our brains, they're good at overcomplicating things. And it's just so fucking easy to think that the grass is greener somewhere else. And, from my experience, that hasn't always been in the case. In fact, more often than not, it's not the case. But I reckon it's probably less about the location and more about the representation and aligning our life to what really matters to it. I was reading this little book the other day called The War of Art, and there's a part in it that talks about this. I don't remember the dude's name, some American ex-actor who now works with terminally ill cancer patients. And it goes on to say how their life priorities change the moment the doctor gives them their diagnosis. Now, I'm not saying here we all need to get fucking cancer to get clear, but I'm just saying we need to stop bullshitting ourselves about what's really important. I said, life's all about trade offs and compromises, and that's true. But it's also got a price tag, and let's face it, what doesn't these days? I discovered a little too late. Well, no, probably a lot too late if I'm honest. But the important thing is that I discovered that a life misaligned with what's important to us is way, way more fucking expensive than one that is aligned. So let's look at that for a minute because I'm talking from my experience here, and but if I was a betting man, I'd chuck 50 for the win. That it's true for a lot of blokes, if not most blokes. Life becomes efficient and it looks good from the outside, but it can feel thin or empty, and you're present, but you're not really invested, and you feel like you're moving, but you don't know where to. Now, this movement, this is really, really interesting, and I'll talk about this in depth in another episode, and I delve really, really deeply into this in my upcoming book, The Gap, which will be out a little bit later this year. This is a big one, and I'll probably do a whole episode or maybe even two on this topic. I think the important thing to note with all this stuff is you're not having a breakdown, but it's more like someone's turned the dimmer switch down on your life. Now, I guess it's important to note that the purpose of this episode is not to give you the meaning of life or to make your life joyous or fulfilled directly as a result of listening to me and my magpies on a beautiful Sunday morning. It was to let you know that if this stuff landed, if it rang a bell, that it's pretty common. And, well, awareness, it's the first step to being able to do something about it. And you can't fix what you don't know is broken, which is it's pretty bloody obvious. But now you do know that you're no more fucked up than the next bloke, and from there you can start to do something about it. So, sorry, mate, there are no 7 steps to a happy life in this podcast. I've tried that shit, and I can tell you firsthand, it doesn't work. And getting this stuff right, well, it's a process and it's a slow and gradual one. Shit, I'm not there yet, and I wrote a fucking book on it, literally. What this podcast is about is working through it, exploring, building awareness around what's actually off, and what we can humanly do about it. So, in the coming episodes, we'll explore this in a lot more detail. This is our first real episode, and I didn't want to jump in there too heavy out of the gate. I reckon next episode, what we might do is dig a little deeper in how how to identify what really matters in your life, and that's going to be really, really bloody different to what matters in my life and what matters, to the bloke down the street. But slowly but surely, we'll work on getting life aligned and what that might look like for you. So I reckon we might bring this one to a close. And look, I hope some of this stuff sort of rang a bell to you and that you can relate to it. But if life is all fucking rosy and you don't feel like anything's off, power to you, brother. I'm bloody envious. But if that's where you are, mate, that's where we all aspire to be to. So don't feel bad if you're doing this shit right. But I think the majority of us probably haven't quite got it all figured out, and I'll put my hand up to be in that group. Now, look, this podcast is part of a bigger body of work. As I said, I've got the book The Gap coming out a little bit later this year. As we get closer, I'm sort of thinking that's probably going to happen June, July. But look, I'll over the coming episodes, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll start to explore some of the topics that are in the book, and what we spoke about today is one topic that is in the book. But if you want to get involved and you like where this conversation's going, I think probably at the moment the easiest way to do that would be on a Facebook. Look up Grown Man Speak on Facebook. We've got a page over there. But I've also just set up, we've got 2 lonely members in there at the moment, set up a Grown Man Speak community group, which is a private group. So if you'd like to get in there, you'd like to talk about what we've spoke about on this episode, or you got some other stuff that you might want to discuss, and I'm hoping to build that community up. Look, it's not about numbers. It's about getting blokes in there that want to explore this stuff, that want to be able to bounce ideas off other blokes and understand where they're at, because that can be a real challenge for a lot of us, is knowing who to speak to. And I'm not saying you're going to get all the answers from there, and I definitely don't have all the answers to share with you, but I will be active in that community. So if you want to make any comments on anything that you've heard in the podcast, which has only really been one at the moment, hop on over there. There is a website coming which will be grownmanspeak.com.au, but there's nothing there yet, so don't go Googling the website. What you can do, though, is help us spread the word by, one, giving this podcast a like, adding it to your favourites list, and if you feel so inclined, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate it, because this is how we get the podcast to grow, and it's bloody hard. It's a crowded platform out there, especially in personal development. And there are a lot of bigger names out there that have a following. I'm pretty much a nobody, so I am starting from right at the bottom. But by giving us a 5-star review, you'll go a long way into the platforms surfacing it to more blokes that might need it. So, guys, I hope you've I was going to say endured. I hope you've enjoyed. You might have endured it. I don't know. I'm new to this podcast game, and I don't know how well this stuff's going to land. But, mate, I'm doing it anyway because I reckon this shit's important, and I reckon there's a lot of blokes out there that need something like this, and they need a community to be part of. So that's it. That's my big spiel, my plug. That's my marketing hat is coming off, and I'm going to go because it's still it's only 8:15 on Sunday morning. I'm going to go make myself a cup of coffee, and we will catch you guys on the next episode of Grown Man Speak. Catch you then. Cheers, guys.